Hello viewers of Biotecnika, welcome back again. So today I'll be talking about CSIR NET Examination 2022 Morning Shift Answer Key along with explanation in unit number 7 System Physiology in Animals in detail. So let's get started to the video. So the first question is question ID 24 part B. So we almost have 4 questions in part B and we have some 6 questions in part C. So let's talk about the part B session and then we'll talk about the part C session in detail. The activities of baroreceptors present in the carotid sinus are carried by the afferent fibers of neurons located in which location is the question. So which of the following is correct? So we already know what is a baroreceptor. So baroreceptor means a receptor which can sense the arterial blood pressure. So arterial blood pressure, we know that the oxygenated blood actually comes through the aorta, and the aorta is definitely going to have a subdivision that is going to be carotid artery. I'll show you the image. So carotid artery, in that carotid artery there is going to be carotid sinus where you can see the baroreceptors. Now, this baroreceptor is actually present in which location is going to be the question. The correct answer for this question is definitely going to be option number 3, which is petrosal ganglions. So let's go to the image and understand this. So this is going to be the aortic arc. You are actually seeing it over here. And in this aortic arc, you are actually seeing a baroreceptor here. And this is going to be the left common arteries and this is going to be the carotid sinus. In this carotid sinus, you are actually seeing an afferent neuron. Afferent neurons are the one which carries impulses from the organ, sense organ, and it reaches to the neurons or to the CNS, central nervous system. So here there arises a glossopharyngeal nerve, which is a afferent neuron. And this is going to carry this, and you are actually going to see a baroreceptor here. This is the baroreceptor which is actually going to be present here. So the answer itself says, if we know the images, definitely it's going to be in the petrosal ganglion. So the correct answer for this question is definitely going to be option number 3, petrosal ganglion. Let's move to the next question, question number 25. This is another part B question, you can see. And this is about respiration in human beings, hypoventilation of a lung. So what is this hypoventilation? Let's read the question. Which one is not a true response of pulmonary J receptor stimulation by hypoventilation of a lungs? The first thing is, what is this J receptor? Where is this J receptor is present? This J receptor is actually present in the alveoli walls. So this alveoli wall is going to have a receptor called J receptor, and this will be stimulated. This receptor will be stimulated when there is going to be a hypoventilation. Hyper is something excess. So hyperventilation means a deep and a shallow or a very depth breathing, shallow breathing, in-depth breathing. So which one is not a true response of the receptor when it is stimulated by the hyperventilation of the lung is the question. Which is not true? So we have to find out which one of these things is not true. Yes. So we already know. Let's discuss this and then we'll come back to the option. Stimulation of J receptor which is resulting in rapid shallow breathing. Okay, it is definitely going to cause hyperventilation. And if J receptor which is present in the alveoli, suppose this is going to be the J receptor, if this is getting stimulated by hyperventilation, excess breathing, it will cause excess breathing. Definitely it causes excess breathing, excess or very, very deep breathing. Is it going to do only this or is it going to do anything else? It is also going to cause mucus production. Mucus production, yes, mucus production increases. And very important, bronchoconstriction. The bronchioles will constrict actually. It is not going to be bronchodilation. So J receptor is definitely going to induce, or after the signaling, it is definitely going to cross bronchoconstriction and not bronchodilation. The next one, J receptor, as we already know, is present in the alveoli wall. And what it will do, it will send a signal How this hypoventilation actually takes place? As soon as the ligand comes and binds to the J receptor, it will get an impulse. And after getting the impulse, this impulse will be carried by the afferent neurons like vagus nerves. And this vagus nerves carries it to the medulla. And in the medulla, we know there is going to be a respiratory center. And this respiratory center in turn sends the signal back again and causes the lungs to hyperventilate again. So afferent neurons carries the impulses from here and afferent neurons carries the impulses from CNS back again to the lungs and causes deep and shallow breathing. So this is actually happening here. So one thing we understood is after a J receptor is getting activated, it causes bronchoconstriction and not bronchodilation. The next one, extreme stimulation may result in apnea. Yes, suppose if you start hyperventilating, if you start excessively deep, shallow breathing, sometimes it can cause the stopping of your breathing, cessation for a temporary period of time. Yes, this also causes apnea. And if there is going to be blood pressure is going to be less. Usually J receptors will be activated when blood pressure is less. So we can say a blood pressure decreases. So if a blood pressure decreases, definitely the heart rate actually decreases. And then I already told you it's going to cause bronchoconstriction and not dilation. And it's going to cause apnea, which is temporary cessation of breathing when a sudden breathing actually takes place. This is the function of all this J receptor. But the question for us is, which one of these things is not done by them? So not a true response of J receptor. So we already know decreased heartbeat, heart rate or low blood pressure, apnea, but it is not bronchodilation. It is definitely going to be bronchoconstrictions. So the answer for this question is option number 1, which is bronchodilation. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which is again a part C question. Which one does not occurs as a physiological adjustment during heat acclimatizations? So suppose if we are exposing to lot of heat, so our body just has some physiological adaptation. So that we are going to talk in detail. So you can see physiological adjustments during heat acclimatizations. So what will happen in acclimatizations? So our body will get adapted if we are exposed to the heat for so long. So that time what will happen? Definitely, as if you know, if there is going to be a lot of heat, ultimately there is going to be increased production of sweating. The purpose of the sweat is to give a cooling effect. So the production of sweat will be maximum, or we can say the sweating efficiency increases. Or there is going to be low threshold before the onset of the breathing, we can say. Okay, next one is when anytime if there is going to be too much of heat, it is definitely going to be a stress situation. So during that time, the heart rate should not increase. So the circulation of the heart has to be maintained, or the circulation of the blood has to be maintained. So stabilization of circulation will take place, which means the equal distribution or effective distribution of cardiac output will take place. So for circulation also it makes stabilization. So during that time, a heart rate should not increase. It has to be stabilized. That is also done during this period. The adjustment, the physiological adjustment will be done if the heat is actually more. The next one is going to be, it is also going to increase the skin blood flow. Skin blood flow, it is going to increase at a core temperature. Now the question for us is, which one of them does not occur as a physiological adjustment during heat acclimatization? The most important thing, yes, we have increased production of sweat, but the sweat will have very less amount of electrolytes. They will not have maximum amount of electrolyte. We don't want any of the salts to be lost through our sweat. So less amount of electrolytes or salt concentration will go, but sweat will be increased, but the concentration will be less. So if we have to check over this question, we know lower threshold for start of sweating, definitely. Yes, the sweat efficiency increases, the production increases. During sweat, I told you decreased salt concentration, but in our option, they have given increased salt concentration. So this is not the correct one. So let's keep it as such. Definitely increases the blood flow and stabilizes the circulation of blood through the cardiac output. So effective distribution is also a correct statement, but they ask you to find out which is the incorrect statement, which does not occur as a physiological statement. So the answer for this question is definitely going to be option number 4, which is increased salt concentration of sweat. Let's see the next question. So the next question is absorbed monosaccharides in intestinal epithelial cells exit through which of the following transporters? Yes, we already know how actually the blood is actually absorbed. Suppose if we have to talk about digestion, so whatever we eat food, so what exactly happens? We used to eat starch, and most of the starch digestion will take place in our mouth, and the rest of the starch digestion takes place in the small intestine, very specifically in the duodenum. So what exactly will happen? The starch will be broken down with the help of amylases, either through pancreatic amylases or salivary amylases, and we get glucose and fructose, which is a monosaccharide, which means digestion. So absorbed. Now this glucose and fructose will be absorbed by the blood and in the intestinal epithelial cells. So it is present in the small intestine. So in the small intestine, you have epithelial cells. So now the question is, suppose if I have to zoom this portion of this cell, one of the cell. So this cell is definitely going to have a receptor. So through this receptor, this glucose molecule will go out. Now the question, what is the receptor that is present in the intestinal epithelial cells? Definitely in an intestinal epithelial cells, it is going to be GLUT2, GLUT2 receptor. So the correct answer for this question is option number 1. Now let's go to the explanation. You can literally see here what are the receptors that are present in different locations. So you can see GLUT1 is present in RBC. In RBC, you will have GLUT1. In 2, you will see liver, pancreas, beta cells and epithelial cells of the intestine. So the answer comes here. Epithelial cells, even renal tubules. Renal tubules of the kidneys used to have GLUT2. And then GLUT3 receptor is present in the brain. And GLUT4, it is present in fatty tissues, adipose tissues, as well as in skeletal muscle, as well as in the heart. And GLUT5 is in jejunum and kidney. So our answer resides in GLUT4. So the correct answer for this question is option number 1, which is GLUT4. So we have done with 4 questions in part B in system physiology and animal. Now we are moving on to part C. So the next is part C. So the part C question ID 87, let's talk about it. A number of statements has been made regarding heme. A component of a hemoglobin is given below. So what we have to find out is which one of the following combination has incorrect statement. So we have to find out the incorrect statement, not the correct one. Okay. So heme is synthesized in the mature erythrocytes. Yes. First understand. Heme will be synthesized, which is the iron containing compound. Hemoglobin is going to have heme group. This will be synthesized in mitochondria and cytosol. It will be synthesized in mitochondria and cytosol. But if we know that, usually an immature RBC only will have mitochondria, or we can say all the organelles. Which means during an immature RBC situation or during erythropoiesis, whenever a mitochondria is present only in an immature stage, that time this heme will be produced. So a heme production will take place only in the immature RBC and not in the mature erythrocyte. But they have given it is synthesized in mature erythrocyte, which is a wrong statement. So they ask you to find out the incorrect statement. So we have to choose option number A. Let's check for the second one. It is synthesized by condensation of succinyl-CoA and glycine. Now let's look at this image. So as I already told you, heme is produced in mitochondria and cytosol. In mitochondria, there are going to be 4 enzymes. You can see it over here. ALA synthase, and there are 3 other enzymes in mitochondria, and there are 4 other enzymes which are in the cytosol. So here you are seeing how a heme is produced, glycine and succinyl-CoA. So you can see here glycine and succinyl-CoA. So condensation of succinyl-CoA and glycine, which means this is a correct statement, which we should not choose it. The next one, it is synthesized by condensation of acetyl-CoA and glycine. No, this is a wrong statement. So we will choose A and C. So the correct answer comes is option number B. Let's check for the D one. It is synthesized by catalyzing alpha delta amino levulinate synthase enzyme. Yes, you can see ALA. This is the enzyme actually. Levulinate synthase enzyme. So this is also a correct statement. So we can say the wrong statements are option number A and option number C. So the correct answer is option B, A and C. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So question ID 88 part C question. Given below are some statements about pituitary hormones. Okay, so let's see what are the statements that are correct and wrong. We have to find out the incorrect statement, not the correct statements. Okay, oxytocins and arginine vasopressin are synthesized in the posterior part of the pituitary, which means they're talking about the neurohypophysis. The only two hormones very specifically synthesized in the hypothalamus. So it is not synthesized in the posterior part of the pituitary. It is synthesized in the hypothalamus. Usually, hypothalamus will always produce the regulatory hormones like stimulating hormones it will be producing. So here oxytocins and vasopressins are produced in the hypothalamus and it's stored and secreted in the posterior part of the pituitary. Suppose if they have given secreted here, then it is correct, but they have given synthesized. So which is going to be a wrong statement? Now we have to choose a wrong statement. So we will choose option A wherever it is present. So I'm going to reject option number C, third option and fourth option, and we have to choose between first and second. Okay, the next, prolactins. Prolactin is synthesized in the anterior part of the pituitary. Yes, in the anterior part of the pituitary, suppose if this is going to be the anterior part of the pituitary, we have lactotroph cells. So this lactotroph cells is definitely going to produce prolactin, which means it is coming from the anterior part of the pituitary. So this is a correct statement, but they asked for an incorrect statement, so I am going to leave it. The next statement, prolactin secretion is marked by increase in sleep. Yes, when will a prolactin secretion will be increased? Sleep, or you have a stress, and this prolactin concentration increases when milk production in female has to take place, because it is going to increase the mammary gland cell divisions, and it's also going to cause stress situation and also cause chest wall elongations or stretching of chest walls, we can say. So prolactin is synthesized from anterior part of the pituitary and it increases during sleep. So both the statements are correct, but we have to choose the incorrect statement. Okay, the next statement, alpha and beta MSH, so for now I'm choosing this one, which is an incorrect statement, are secreted from intermediate lobe of pituitary in adult humans. Very important point is this. So usually mammals used to have an intermediate lobe, but adult humans do not have a distinct intermediate lobe. Then where will this melanocyte stimulating hormones will be produced? Yes, in the anterior part of the pituitary. In the anterior part of the pituitary, there is going to be propiomelanocortins, POMC. So this is going to be expressed in the anterior part of the pituitary cells, anterior part of the pituitary. And this in turn is going to serve as a precursor. So POMC is going to serve as a precursor for the production of alpha melanocyte stimulating hormone and beta melanocyte stimulating hormone. So alpha and beta melanocyte stimulating hormones will be coming from propiomelanocortins. It is not from the intermediate lobe of the pituitary, because humans do not have a prominent intermediate lobe of pituitary. So this is definitely going to be a wrong statement. So I'm going to choose this. So answer A and C you can see in only option number 1. Okay, let's look for the next one. So the correct answer is going to be option number 1. The next one, growth hormone secretion from anterior part of the pituitary is stimulated by hypoglycemia. Yes, if there is going to be acute hypoglycemia will causes the production of serotonin in the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is going to produce serotonin, and this serotonin will inhibit, it will not promote, it will inhibit growth hormones. It will not actually secretes from the anterior part of the pituitary, it will actually inhibits the growth hormone. So it is serotonin they have to mention, but they have given a wrong one. So this is actually a wrong statement. So our answer comes around A, C and D. So the correct option for this question is option number 1. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, question ID 89, part C question. Following are statements about major function of some of the neuroglia cells. Yes, neurons are going to be attached with glia cells in normal conditions. Okay, so they have given oligodendrocytes helps maintain potassium level and contribute to the blood-brain carrier, and microglia are capable of movement and phagocytosis of pathogens and damaged tissues, and astrocytes produce myelin sheaths to electrically induce, and ependymal cells are ciliated involved in the circulation of CSF. Okay, the first statement is wrong. So they ask you to find out the incorrect statement. Okay, let's look for the incorrect statement. Oligodendrocytes is not responsible to maintain potassium level. It is not going to contribute for the blood-brain carrier. This activity is actually done by astrocytes. So instead of astrocytes, they have given oligodendrocytes. Astrocytes is the one which maintains potassium and they contribute to the blood-brain barrier, but they have given opposite of it. And oligodendrocyte, here it has to be oligodendrocytes. Oligodendrocytes are the one which maintains a myelin sheaths around the neurons. Suppose this is the axon part. Around this you will see the myelin sheaths. So this myelin sheaths is actually secreted by oligodendrocytes. But they have just made a change of astrocytes. The opposite options are actually given. So this is also going to be a wrong statement. We have to choose these wrong statements only. What about this second option? Microglia are capable of movement and phagocytosis of pathogen and damaged tissue. In our neurons, we have a resident immune cell. That immune cell is going to be microglia. So microglia will perform phagocytosis and engulfs and remove all the damaged tissue. So that statement is a correct statement. And the last statement, ependymal cells. These ependymal cells are simple cells, which means they are one layer cells, simple ciliated cells. And these simple ciliated cells are actually present in the central, let me show this image. You can literally see central canal of the spinal cord. This is going to be the ependymal cell. In this part, you will see a ependymal cells which is actually present, which is ciliated. And this is the central canal, and as well as in the ventricles of the brain. So these ependymal cells are present in the central canal as well as in the ventricles of the brain, and the main role of them, since they are ciliated, they help the circulation of cerebrospinal fluid, CSF. Yes, because CSF is the one which prevents any kind of damage in the brain and the spinal cord. So the option D is also a correct statement. So microglia is also a correct statement and option D is also a correct statement. But they ask you to find out the wrong statement. So option A and option C goes wrong. So the option for this question is option number 2, A and C. Okay, let's look for the next question. The autoregulation of blood flow in the active tissue is partially achieved locally by a metabolite accumulated in the tissues. The contribution of these metabolites in this autoregulation is suggested in the following statements. Okay, which means there's an active tissues and the blood flow in the active tissue is autoregulated because of the metabolites they are talking about. If metabolite increases or decreases, or what is their contribution, they are asking. First thing, accumulation of, we have to find out correct statements. So let's look at the correct statement. Let's go one by one. The accumulation of potassium locally in active tissue has vasoconstriction activity. Okay, let's go to the next slide and understand. Suppose, let's take osmolarity. Osmolarity is going to be, which means the potassium ions are high. If potassium ions are high, which means there is water is less. So let me make it this way. So when the osmolarity is going to be high or the potassium is high, it is going to do two functions. The main thing is we don't want excess water to go out of the body. So what will happen? It will stimulate the hypothalamus. And this hypothalamus is going to produce ADH, which is vasopressin. And this ADH will absorb all the water in the urine. Reabsorption of water in the urine by the collecting tube of the kidneys, renal tubules. And the second role is it is going to go to the adrenal gland. In the adrenal gland, it is going to stimulate the adrenal medulla. And this adrenal medulla is actually going to produce one important hormone. We already know it is going to be norepinephrine or noradrenaline. So it is going to produce norepinephrine. This norepinephrine comes in circulation and it will be uptaken by the neurons. It will be uptake by the sympathetic neurons, sympathetic nerves. It will be carried by the sympathetic nerve. And this sympathetic nerves goes, and this norepinephrine goes and binds to the receptors. Binds because it's a ligand. It binds to alpha and beta adrenergic receptor, and this receptor is present in the smooth vascular muscles. Smooth vascular muscles. Vascular muscles. So what exactly is happening? Suppose this is a smooth vascular muscle. They are going to have an alpha and a beta adrenergic receptor. And in this receptor, this norepinephrine comes and binds. As soon as this binds, it is going to initiate the production of vasodilators. It produces vasodilators. So there is going to be a production of vasodilators. So when a vasodilator is actually produced, it is going to cause the muscle to relax, smooth muscle to relax. If muscle relaxes, then the blood flow actually increases. So you have to remember, when osmolarity increases, it is definitely going to cause vasodilation and not vasoconstrictions. So remember, osmolarity increased. So adrenal gland is going to secrete norepinephrine. This norepinephrine goes and binds to the receptors which are present onto the smooth vascular muscle, and they bring about vasodilator molecules to be produced, which causes the dilation of the smooth vascular muscle, and the blood flow actually increases, which means accumulation of potassium means osmolarity is increased. In active cell causes not vasoconstriction. It is definitely going to be vasodilation. So this is a wrong statement. So we should not choose this option. The next statement also says the same thing, but the name alone is different. Osmolarity they have given. Osmolality they have given, which means potassium ion increases. Same situation. Vasodilation only. It's not vasoconstriction. Okay. The next statement. The accumulation of lactate, which means lactate will be produced only when oxygen is less, correct? Because in fermentation, in anaerobic respiration, lactate will be formed. So which means an oxygen is less. Always remember, when oxygen becomes less, there will always be a vasodilator only. It will always form vasodilation. It will never make vasoconstriction. But here, the accumulation of lactate in active tissue may contribute to vasoconstriction they have given, which is wrong. It is vasodilation. So this is also a wrong statement. Okay, let's look at the statement number D. Hypoxia induced factor, which means hypoxia means oxygen is less. If oxygen is less, this factor will be produced when oxygen is less. And because of this, it will produce what? Vasodilation. Yes, as I told you, when oxygen is less, it will always cause vasodilation. So this is actually a correct statement. So where are you seeing the option number D? Only in option number third one and option number fourth one. Let's keep it. So this is definitely going to be option number 4 because the E is correct. Histamine, which will be released from the mast cell. So it is released from damaged cells of active tissues, increases capillary or vacuolar permeability. Yes, this you would be studying in your immunology chapter. So this statement is also correct. So option D and statement D and statement E are correct. So the correct option is option number 4. Very easy question. Okay. The next one, a human subject, question ID 91. A human subject can voluntarily inhibit respiration for some period of time, but subject feels irresistible urge to resume breathing after while a point of time, and that point is called breathing point. Now they are talking about the breaking point, all the characteristics, okay, which means I can try to hold my breath for some time, but at certain point of time I cannot hold my breath, which means I'm going to break at that point. So the point at which you cannot control your breath voluntarily, so that point where you're going to stop that, and when you start breathing, that is the breaking point. So they are talking about the breaking point. So first let's understand, if suppose, let's understand this in detail. Breaking point. So what is this breaking point? When you can't hold your breath for so long, the point you will say, okay, let me breathe it out. That point is called as breaking point. Okay. So this breaking point, when it will happen, why you are actually not able to hold your breath for so long? Only for a few seconds you can hold your breath. Why you are not able to do? Because if I'm inspiring some amount of air and I'm holding my breath for some time, so what will happen? oxygen will be there. This oxygen will be used for respiration by the tissues. So the tissue takes this oxygen and converts everything into ATP. That time we know that during a respiration process, carbon dioxide increases. So I can say, when we are holding the breath for some point of time, the carbon dioxide concentration increases, which means the partial pressure of carbon dioxide increases. So oxygen decreases, so the partial pressure of oxygen decreases. So now I want oxygen. So because the oxygen has become less, because whatever the oxygen I have kept inside, I'm holding it for some time, I'm not inspiring it, it has become less. So I need to take oxygen. So what exactly happened? I am going to stop that holding process and I'm going to breathe it out. So how it is actually happening? Because in our arterial blood usually comes to this carotid arteries. And in this part, you're going to see a carotid body. And this carotid body is going to be a chemoreceptor. This chemoreceptor will tell whether the oxygen is high or less, or carbon dioxide is less or high. So it is like a detector which tells in the blood whether carbon dioxide is coming or oxygen is coming maximum. So if this carotid artery is removed, so if carotid artery is present, suppose let's take carbon dioxide is maximum. I am holding the breath and the carbon dioxide has become maximum. Now I want oxygen. So I'm going to breathe it out. So that time how it is happening, this carotid artery senses that yes, the carbon dioxide is less. Now I have to go in for breaking point and it will go to the medulla, and in the medulla it will be triggering the respiratory center. And now what you will do? You will start breathing. Start breathing, which means you resume holding it. You will stop holding your breath and you will start breathing it. That point is called breaking point. So now the question, first option says the breaking point is shorter in people, subjects after removal of carotid body. Okay. I told if carotid body is there, it will signal the medulla oblongata so that what exactly will happen? You will start breathing out or breathing in. You will break the point of holding your breath. But here what they said, it is going to shorter in subject after removal. If I remove a carotid body, okay, it cannot sense whether the carbon dioxide is less or not. So it cannot send a signal to a medulla. If it is not sending a signal to medulla, a breaking point will not be shorter. We can say it will increase actually. So here they have given the breaking point is shorter. No, it will be for long period of time. Because even though a carotid artery is not there, it cannot send the impulses to your medulla and tell, okay, you breathe it out, break the point. So that will be longer for some period of time. So this is a wrong statement. So we have to select the correct statement only. The breaking point is prolonged if the subject breathes 100% oxygen before breath holding. Okay, I'm trying to hold my breath for some period of time. Before holding my breath, I'm going to inhale some extra 100% of oxygen. So I can hold it for some period of time, which means the breaking point is prolonged. So this statement is actually a correct statement, which means B is correct. Let's check for so the only option that you're seeing is option number 1 and option number 2. Already we know A is wrong. So definitely the option is going to be 2 only. So if we go for rejection, this is going to be the answer. The breaking point is prolonged. This we have done. This third point is when the subject hyperventilates with room air before holding a breath, the breathing point is delayed compared to the subject breathes normally after breath holding. Suppose if a person breathes extra oxygen inside before trying to hold the breath, he can actually prolong the breaking point for some period of time. So this statement is actually correct. So the correct one is B and C. What about D? Breaking point can be reduced when a person do some breathing movements. No, if you start doing a breathing movement, it will collapse the glottis or it will cause mechanical damage. So this is a wrong statement. The last statement is the breaking point is shorter when a subject is told during breath holding that her performance is very good compared to the situation when she is not told so. It's not like if I encourage you or if I tell you that you are doing really good, nothing can happen inside your body. So this is definitely going to be a wrong statement. So the correct statement is going to be statement number B and statement number C. So the correct option is option B. Okay. The next question, last question, question ID 92, part C. The intake of nutrients is under intricate control. Yes, all the things happens inside our internal control. Cholecystokinin, which is CCK. CCK will be produced only when you eat a food, protein or fats if you're eating, then only it will be produced. This CCK will be produced by the small intestine, very specifically in the duodenum. In the duodenum, cells are going to, mucosal cell will produce this CCK. This CCK will come in circulation and it will go to the gallbladder because the gallbladder stores the bile. And it will stimulate the gallbladder, it binds to the receptors of the gallbladder and causes the contraction of the gallbladder. So bile will come into the duodenum for digestion. Next, it will induce the pancreas and it produces pancreatic enzymes. So all the pancreatic enzymes and bile will come to the duodenum for digestion because protein and fat is present there. But what about the emptying of the stomach? It will not, until this digestion is going on, they will not allow the food intake, which means it prevents the appetite, it prevents the hunger. But the tool stimulates food intake. No, it will never stimulate, it will inhibit the food intake because it is already doing its action. It will not allow any more food to come inside. So this is going to be a wrong statement. So we have to choose only the correct statement. The next one, leptin. So leptin is produced in adipose tissue, correct. Leptin is called as actually as satiety hormones. Satiety hormones. Hunger feels satisfied, which means it is going to prevent hunger. Prevent hunger. Which means in food intake will not be there. They will not allow food intake. Because you already filled. If leptin is present, it is already filled. So they will not ask any more food to come inside. But they have given it stimulates food intake. No, it will inhibit food intake. It is produced by the adipose cells as well as in the enterocytes of the intestine also. And this leptin is going to go and bind to the neurons of the hypothalamus. Correct. Then only what will happen? It will prevent the food intake. And this leptin stimulate metabolic rate. Yes. So this statement is correct. And the leptin is going to stimulate the metabolic rate by beta oxidation of fatty acids, by increasing the uptake of glucose, and it also prevents the accumulation of adipose tissues onto other non-parts of the smooth muscles. So leptin is actually preventing food intake, but it will go and bind to the neuron receptor of the hypothalamus. So that's a correct statement. And it increases the metabolic activity independent of the food intake. Next, ghrelins. This ghrelin is called as hunger hormone. Hunger hormones means definitely it will induce the food intake. It increases hunger. If it increases the hunger, which means it initiates, it stimulates food intake, but they have just given the opposite. It is inhibiting the food intake. No, this is also a wrong statement. So we cannot choose option number D. The next one, ghrelins increases secretion of neuropeptides. Yes, this hunger hormone will produce a neuropeptides of the neurons of the hypothalamus. So we can say option C, option E and option F are correct. That you are actually seeing it in option number 4. So the correct answer for this question is C, E and F. So you can see it here. CCK is a primary hormone. Yes, primary hormone. And it is going to go and bind to the gallbladder and causes contraction and pancreatic secretions like plant C. Like we can say plant C. Chymotrypsinogen, trypsinogen, pancreatic nucleases, all these things will be produced. And gastric emptying, which means stomach. It will not allow any more food to come. And satiety, yes, which means it prevents appetite. So, but they have given stimulate. So, that's a wrong statement. And leptin inhibits hunger, yes. And it is also regulating energy balance. So, metabolism also it is helping. And so, leptin receptor is located in cell membrane in various tissue as well as in the hypothalamus. So, this is correct. And ghrelin is going to be a hormone produced by the stomach. It's not by the intestine, stomach. And it is definitely going to increase the food intake. And it's also going to increase the neuropeptides. So, the correct answer we have seen is definitely going to be option number D. So, in today's video, we were actually talking about unit number 7, System Physiology in Animals, Part B and Part C questions. So Part B are going to be almost 4 questions and Part C are going to be 6 questions we have seen. I hope this video is helpful for all of you. So thank you all of you for joining and I'm going to meet you back again with yet another wonderful video. Thank you.